I was watching the pay-per-view Saturday, and they pop up an advertisement for Submission Underground, and I loved it. I marked out for it. I didn't know that was going to be in there. It's on this pay-per-view. All right. Pat on my own back, but I was personally excited about it, and then they put up a full page of March. Oh my God, it was nasty. I could not believe it. I'm looking at the March, and they only put the main events, like first week of March, and it was like Adesanya versus Blachowicz. Second week of March, Chimaev versus Edward. Third week of March, Ngannou versus Stipe. Fourth Saturday in March, and I forgot it. I forgot it off the top of my head. It was just as good as all the ones I just named. And there's no way those are all pay-per-view. Those are all pay-per-view main events. There's no way they're doing 4 pay-per-views, which means we're getting at least 3 of those for free, right? Or we're getting at least 2 of those for free. They might be, I got to assume, the World Heavyweight title, and I got to assume the Lightweight Championship, Blachowicz and Izzy, both pay-per-views. But we're going to get 2 free ones in there. Loaded March, like the most loaded month I have ever seen the UFC put on a full page and advertise. So this most loaded March, back up, guys. There's a fight coming up, and I don't want anyone to miss this. And I don't know if anyone can tell the story like me. I'm involved in this at least a little bit, which is Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman. And the reason I am involved and the reason I am excited about this fight is one thing. Okay, the day I meet Uriah Hall, set of The Ultimate Fighter, Uriah Hall had a record then of roughly 11-1. He might have been 12-1. He might have been 10-1. Anderson Silva was the champion of the world. And the gym where we trained in was a great big picture of Anderson Silva with the belt over his shoulder. I mean, right, if you're coming through the Ultimate Fighter, particularly if you're going to win it, there is a real history of whoever wins the Ultimate Fighter goes into world title fights and becomes world champions. It is the toughest tournament in sports, and Uriah is the guy who's going to win it. That is absolutely the belief of everybody, including Dana White. And Dana White, I overheard him say on 2 different occasions during this process, watching Uriah fight, and he would turn to I think he was turning to Craig, but he would turn and say to some, what am I going to do with this guy? I got to put him right into a world title fight? Like Uriah was that nasty and that scary and that impressive. But Uriah wasn't talking about Anderson, not once. All Uriah Hall wanted to do, when I told you about his record, 11-1, that one was to Chris Weidman. Both living in New York, and where they fought was a small regional show that had a lot of hometown territory, a lot of hometown bragging rights, but they fought in this small show that wasn't even televised, and Weidman beat him. And Uriah Hall was never talking about being the Ultimate Fighter. He wasn't going on to riches and fames. He wasn't talking about world titles with Anderson Silva. Every time you talked to him, all he wanted was Chris Weidman. It's just one of those things where when you find out how important this is to an athlete, and you find out for how long and why. I mean, this was one of those backroom matches that unless you were there, you didn't see, you don't even know it existed. I'm not 100% sure that there's even a video out there within the internet that you could search and see this match. And I've been in those myself. The first match I ever had, small room, biggest crowd I'd ever performed in front of. Wrestler my whole life. There was almost 200 people. The Roseland Theater in Portland, Oregon, almost 200 people. I was a superstar. I couldn't believe it. 200 people. And I fought a guy named Trevor Prangley. And when I rematched Trevor Prangley, this little thing, again, like my point, there's not even a video you could find out there, right? Very insignificant match, but mattered to me. I rematched Prangley in the UFC. So I just kind of got where Uriah was coming from. This isn't about the championship. It's not about Anderson. It's not about all these things going on. You want to get that one back. And that one is against a guy named Chris Weidman. And Uriah is finally getting that opportunity and chance. And that's a very different match right now. I mean, that's a very different match. Chris Weidman fights a very different style than he did early on. He came in as the All-American. But he was also an All-American Division I wrestler for Hofstra. I mean, he's actually an All-American. It wasn't just a moniker or a nickname, but he used to fight that way. He would get his hands on you, get on top, and the sport was at a different point back then where that was enough. It went on to not be enough, and Weidman evolved with it, and it's not necessarily wrestling heavy. He's going to come out and jab with you. He's going to come out and kick with you. I only suggest for you, that is a completely different match now. And I don't want this to go under your guys' radar. It's a very fun match. I'm sure you guys agree with me on that, but there's a significance and a meaningfulness to this. And I think it's important that you do understand that this is what Uriah Hall has wanted from day one. He's gone on to be co-main events and main events, and he was Anderson Silva's last opponent, all these different things. This is what he's wanted from day one. So keep that in mind. I'm looking forward to the match, and I feel that now you can also look forward to that match.